And earlier today, President Trump, he visited the grand opening of the new illegal immigrant detention center in Florida. It is dubbed Alligator Alcatraz, alongside DHS Secretary Kristi Noem and Florida Governor Ron DeSantis. During his trip, President Trump touted the work of the administration, what they have done to clean up the mess that Biden and Kamala Harris left. Take a look.
It's a great honor to be deep in Florida, the Florida Everglades, to open America's newest migrant detention center. If you care about balancing the budget, the single most impactful step we can take is to fully reverse the Biden migration invasion. I've gotten to know the Border Patrol and ICE very well. Unlike Kamala, she was the border czar, but she never saw the border. She never made one phone call. She was some border czar. She would have been some president.
All right, during the visit, DHS Secretary Kristi Noem also slammed fake news CNN for appearing to promote an app that alerts people to ICE agents in the area. Now CNN is pushing back on the claims that they were promoting the app, instead saying that they were just reporting on the app. Here's what they said yesterday. You get to decide.
I talked with Joshua Aaron, who is the longtime tech worker who developed this platform, and he said he really wants it to be an early warning system for people about the location of Immigrations and Customs Enforcement officers. So he says he does not want people interfering with those officers' activity, but he does want people to be able to avoid them altogether. You open the app, it looks like a map, and users can tap the map to report an ICE sighting in their area, and then everybody who uses the platform within 5 miles of that sighting will get a push alert. This is a free iPhone app. It is anonymous. Aaron says he doesn't collect any
comes a disturbing surge on assaults against ICE and federal agents that are conducting immigration raids, according to our own Bill Illusion, between January 21st and June
30th of this year. These assaults were up nearly a whopping 700%.
So obviously, guys, terrible idea, right? I mean, you know, I understand like the ACLU and things like that. You know, they look out for the public and they look out for, you know, invasion of privacy and things of that nature. This is like borderline like the other completely other direction, right? So like, you know, I always wonder like when you take Waze or stuff like that and you see that it says that there's a cop nearby, that's very different than what this is saying. This is saying that there's active law enforcement in your area doing an operation, whatever that operation is. Should it be free and available to people? Yes. You know, but you know, at what cost? Like, what is the end result of this? I'm not sure legally how I feel about that. You know, it's not a good look. Where you know, if it comes to like a freedom of speech or freedom of information or whatever nuance you want to or spin you want to put on it, it's still just not a good idea. And so I would say that, in the event that somebody is hurt, you know, with this information, is that company going to be held liable, right? If one of these officers are injured or, God forbid, killed during a scenario where an actual perpetrator was alerted to their presence because of this application, what's their liability look like? Like, you know, in the end, unfortunately, it's probably going to have to be tested, right? Somebody is going to have to eventually get hurt. And the other problem is there's just a lot of people that are probably just getting away, right? So then if you go forward with me with this and think about it logically, let's say ICE was doing a raid a few blocks away. They were attempting to, you know, arrest a man for trafficking or whatever, for anything. Let's say he just jumped the turnstile and he was illegal. Maybe you don't agree with that, but let's just go with this example. So now a few blocks away, an actual murderer that ICE was also going to be looking for, he gets alerted now through this application. He ends up getting away and he kills somebody else. Maybe a few days later, or whatever the scenario is. Now, is this application now going to be held liable for causing that crime? It's going to be a fascinating thing to think about, and I mean, hopefully it doesn't come to that. It probably will, unfortunately, because these scenarios are ramping up, and there's just so many, you know, that are out there that you know, it's bound to happen, right? And it's all gonna be. It's just a question is, can you trace it back to that application? Can you trace it back to this instance where this person was notified through the application, or somebody else is notified through the application, and inform that person? You know, there's a lot of layers to this. You know, that the people that are making this thing probably aren't thinking about. You know, I'd be really interested to see like who created it, where this is housed, and and what's the legal liability of all this? It's pretty crazy.
Over the same time period last year, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, she was with the president today, Kristi Noem is with us. Okay, 700% increase against agents, and you've got groups that are, and I had Pam Bondi on about this last night, they are warning people. Are they not aiding and abetting in the law breaking? Are they not responsible for obstructing justice? And she was very open to looking into the criminality of it, or potential criminality of it.
Yes, absolutely. I believe, in my opinion, that they are. And that's why I'm so thrilled that Pam is willing to be proactive and go after those individuals.
I like her. I just don't really like the way the hat looks. I don't know. If you think I'm right, drop a comment down below. By the way, give me a like, share, subscribe, do all that good stuff. It really helps me out, especially being a small channel. Let's see what else she has to say. I wish she wasn't wearing the hat. Not because I don't like the hat. I just, I don't know.
Individuals that would perpetuate this kind of activity against our law enforcement officers, these ICE agents.
And yes, I see that it's ironic that I'm wearing a hat and I'm railing against her hat. Not that I don't like the hat. She just, she's a nice looking lady. Why you gotta wear a hat?
These law enforcement officers, Border Patrol agents, they get up every single day and are working to get these dangerous criminals off of our streets are heroes. They are absolute heroes. And to hear that the amount of violence that's coming up against them, a 700% increase in just the last several months against them and their families, they're not just going after them. They're also doxing their families and threatening their children. And these individuals just love America and believe that the law should apply to everybody. They're doing their jobs that Joe Biden never let them do, and they're protecting their own communities. Remember that many of these law enforcement officers live in these communities. Their children go to those schools. They go to church there. These are their neighbors they're trying to protect. And to have someone like CNN openly describing how to use technology to reveal the activities and the operations that these law enforcement folks are trying to conduct, it's shameful and it could be prosecutable. So I'm glad that Pam is looking into it.
And you said, I'm calling out you, CNN. I'm calling out you because you lie every single day about what these operations are. There's been a lot of lying. Madam Secretary, it's been going on for 4 years. The border's closed. The border's secure. No, it's not. They've allowed in known terrorists, including from Iran. People need to know that. And murderers, rapists, and cartel members, drug dealers, other violent criminals. They've allowed them all in. We don't know the actual number. Somewhere between 12 million, 20 million. How many gotaways? Nobody knows. Where the terrorists are. How do you find them? It's like finding a needle in a haystack. But you're doing it. Apparently, you have found a lot of people with terror ties in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, we absolutely have. In fact, President Trump, since he's been in office, has removed almost 600 known and suspected terrorists, thousands of violent criminals.
So listen, I've said this before in other videos, and I'm going to say it again, that I'm not really down with the rounding up of people, at the Home Depot parking lot. I don't think that is a adequate. It's not the resources going to that. I'm not thrilled with. And I don't think most people are. Now, if you're doing that, identifying individuals and then seeing if they have a criminal record, then that's fine. But I think that just like in a lot of facets of law enforcement, what they like to pad the numbers, right? So they're just running around scooping up people, some of which don't have, other than them coming across the border. Listen, if you want to just throw everybody that comes across the border back, I can get behind that. However, I wanted. It's never going to happen, first of all, right? Here's what you guys got to understand. It's a numbers thing, a numbers game. At most, we're probably going to maybe we'll ramp it up and get to doing 1,000 deportations a day. At that level, all you're doing is, 300, 400,000 annually, right? 4, 8, 12, 16. So that's 1.6 million, within the next 4 years. That's about what you're going to get. We're probably going to deport around 2 million. Right, roughly in the next 4 years. That's not anywhere close to 12 or 20. So what I would rather than getting the people that, are trying to be quiet, right? Like the analogy I always use, if you came over here illegally and you're trying to be quiet and you're doing everything you need to do and you're not causing a disturbance, you're trying to blend in, you're paying your taxes, doing what you need to do, then it's like the kids when they're getting ready to go to bed, right? Bedtime, I start yelling bedtime. And then once I go to actually make the move, maybe I sit down, I start watching something, I forget about it. And if the kids are smart and they're quiet, then we forget about them. We let them go an extra 15, 20 minutes, right? If they're illegal doing that, I don't mind it as much. And I would rather not spend the resources on going after them. I would rather spend the resources on going after people that are committing violent crimes or even property crimes, any crime. I'm fine with any crime. right? But if you got here and you're as clean as a whistle after you walked in the door, you shouldn't be number one on the list, right? What we should be doing is on all these sanctuary cities and on all these places that are not cooperating with ICE, right? Just like New York, you should be having agents right outside the court facility. And when people get out of court, when people get released, when people get deferred prosecution and declined prosecution from state and local legislators. So it happens all the time. A cop will arrest somebody, right? They'll get prosecuted. They'll get put into the system. The cop will tell the DAs, this is what I have. The DAs will say, no, we're not interested in prosecuting. And they just get let right out the door. They don't get arraigned. Nothing happens to them. There should be agents right there stopping people, saying, hey, who are you? Where you come from? I think that would be, I don't see that. And I'm down there, so I know what's going on, and I don't see people doing that. I wish I would see people doing that.
Individuals that are murderers and rapists and drug traffickers, human traffickers. And I talked today about one of the horrific instances of our individuals, our law enforcement officers, having to put hands on individuals that were even cannibals and removing them from our country. These are deranged individuals that other countries released out of their prisons, out of their mental institutions, and sent them to America to roam on our streets and perpetuate violence against our citizens. President Trump is just trying to follow through on what he promised the American people, and that's to get the worst of this worst out of this country so that they can raise their children in safety and apply the law equally to everyone, bring justice back to America, secure our border, but also get these dangerous criminals out. And I'm just so proud of him. This facility down in Florida is what I think should be the model for every single state. Go out there and help us partner to provide an opportunity to detain these individuals, to process them under due process, and get them out of our country as fast as possible. These kind of partnerships can happen everywhere. We just need governors and leaders to step up and do their jobs.
The DHS Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs, Tricia.
Yeah, that was well said. I'm pretty much in agreement with a lot of what they're talking about. Not the biggest fan of Hannity. He was very 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 warish. I'm very glad that we're not in a ground war with Iran right now. That was a very big possibility. Easily could have happened. This was well said. Again, I like her. I have nothing against her. I just think that her and Holman. I think Holman is doing an incredible job. I just think they have to be laser focused on the threats. The threats, people putting up drywall. Listen, if they're in the mix, I'm not going to weep for them. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that. I'm gonna say, oh, poor them. No, they did something wrong. They got caught up in the mix. It is what it is. It's part of the game, right? That's just part of the hand that you've been dealt. However, I really want to see those resources targeting the people that we need to get out of this country, right? Potential terrorist threats, right? Criminals of any sort, whether you're driving drunk or committing like violent acts on people, whether you're stealing a candy bar. I don't care what it is that you're doing. Anything that you're doing that's illegal, you should be right to the top of the list and you should be thrown out. That's the way I view it. Let me know what you think in the bottom. Throw a comment, like, share, subscribe. See me on X, 6283 Talk on X. Thanks a lot for coming on, guys. See you again in the next video. Thanks a lot.